Okay, so here we are playing For the People. Just started. Union opened up with the card Emergency Call for Volunteers, giving them 5 extra strength points. They put 2 of them over in Washington. We'll see. Those have moved away. A couple in Cairo and I think 1 in St. Louis. Confederates played a cheap card and reinforced Price up at Fayetteville. I was mistaken about one rule. When you play cards for ops and decide to use that to buy PCs, political control markers, you can do that anywhere where you have infantry. The armies can spend movement points to convert territories into controlled areas, which is still a huge advantage. I just wanted to clarify. So then the Union played the Forward to Richmond card, which is usually a penalty for them. But because of their additional strength, they're going to attack Beauregard here, and he doesn't have Johnston to support him in any sense of the word. So we're going to handle this combat, I suppose. Alright, so the Union has good old McDowell, who's got, as we see, an attack value of 1, against Beauregard, who has a defense value of 1. Let's see what we get on the battle law. Oh, strength-wise, Beauregard has 3. I'm stupid. I thought I had hit 3 to 1. Oh well, McDowell has 7. We'll do a bull run here. At least Johnston's not here. Okay. It's not an amphibious attack. Force ratio, no advantage. Other die roll modifiers both have +1. And there's really nothing else there. So, what did I say the total was? 10, which is a medium battle. And this can't be good. Yeah. I'm using blue for the Union, red for the Confederates. And the Union gets a 5, that does 1. The Confederates get a 5, that does 1. It's not an asterisk result, so the Union just lost that battle, and there's going to be a strategic will effect for that. I have to look up. But both sides take a strength point loss. Nobody rolled a total of 10, so there's no chance of a leader casualty there. The Union has to retreat back where they are. I'll take care of the strategic will points. I'm not sure there are any because it's not a large battle. We have a summary of that on here. That'd be nice. Yeah. Okay, yeah, it's only a large battle that causes strategic will to affect. This didn't even make the newspapers. Okay. So one thing we notice here is, unlike the Victory Games game, the armies aren't disrupted afterwards. You don't have to do something to reorganize them. So that Union army is still pretty potent, and the Confederate is likewise still there. Whether or not they can do anything of value, I'm not sure. Well, we'll see what happens. So blundering along, moved some forces down into Parkersburg to start taking West Virginia. The Confederates moved up to Springfield, and they also moved into Bowling Green, again to try to convert these border states over. In terms of other cards, the Union increased its amphibious landing capability. It's up to a 2 now. That seemed a very valuable card to throw away. And the Confederates, well, you could move just about anything with a 3 card. They could grab points in their couple of places, but they couldn't do too many things. So they used their purchasing agents to grab some extra forces in some of the blockade cities, just to maybe they can move them into the forts, which seem to be separate spaces. I'm not I have to look that up, because if they can move immediately into the forts from the city, they definitely would rather do that. Alright, let's finish up the turn here. Now, in the Victory Games game, things like Missouri and West Virginia usually fall in that first turn. It's about the same length of time, and I feel like this is going to be a very long process to get them to move over. So it's a very different field there. Maybe I'm doing something very wrong. Change capital, that doesn't have to happen. Political control determination, yeah. So we get some PCs. There's a Confederate one here in Springfield, and one in Bowling Green. And we got a Union one in Parkersburg. And that's sort of the entire effect. Now, obviously, I wasted a cheap card with that on to Richmond attack. That didn't work out very well, but that's okay. Border states don't change. Nothing changes there. War weariness and Confederate guilt. There's no points for that here. So, looks to me we hit attrition. I'll take care of that. And I'll look up that roll to see if these guys who I placed in the could be in the forts. Well, that's the end of the spring turn in 1861. I looked up the roll. As far as I can tell, first of all, as far as I can tell, there's no way to move to these. I don't think that's correct. I think that one can move into them using riverine move. It seems the only reasonable answer at all. There's a specific rule in the game that says if something's not covered, you just can't do it. Well, I find that there's indications by the fact that it says you can only have one Confederate unit in any of these forts except for Fort Monroe, the only one which you can actually walk to. So to me, there's an implication there that you'd be able to move into them somehow. Some of them, by river movement, look like they'd be allowed the riverine movement. And then the question becomes, well, come on, Fort Pulaski is sitting in Savannah Harbor. Why couldn't you get there? However, it is going to require Confederate commands to move there by that reckoning. So, one thing I notice is that the attrition is terribly deadly. Anything between 3 and 6 strength points loses a strength point. That means 2 of the build-ups I made have been reduced. It's very hard to keep anything like an army together, or at least a small force, beyond 2 strength points, which is safe. And that is very different from what I'm used to from the Victory Games game. It's going to definitely affect and afflict my decision making. Anyway, I go to the reinforcements phase now. This is, I believe, a full reinforcements phase. There will be troops produced, etc., and a bunch of new generals. We get the list of what we're seeing here. I'll be putting them in a cup in order to randomize as I place them. Onward. Okay, so I finished up the reinforcement phase, and the Confederates got all their, not only their 9 state points, but they also got 1 for each of the different 4 zones for blockade runners. I'm kind of trying to set up in a way to avoid the anaconda effect, and when possible I'm going to move into the fortresses. Not sure I'm allowed to or not. The Union tried to conglomerate forces here under Pope. Seeing we've got some generals and Buell. See some significant forces. Johnston's trying to gather an army there. They want to try to swing Kentucky. That's their best chance right now. And they're going to form an army because they can convert it more quickly that way. The only leader Johnston got all the leaders. He was trying to draw Stuart, and that was the only one that went under Beauregard. I was left with one leader left and said, well, you know, I need Cav over in the east too. I could have guaranteed it after having drawn everything else over there, but kind of switched my plan in midstream. The thing that worries me the most is that Butler is not blockaded in Fort Monroe. Now, he's not very good, but he could come out and conceive, well, it's fortified, so I'm assuming that's pretty hard, but he could conceivably take Richmond, and that would be a horrible effect for the Confederates. Likewise, there's a huge force now over in the Army of the Potomac, and nothing of equal size to face it in Northern Virginia, so I'm suspecting McClellan also drew many leaders, or McDowell drew many leaders, and he's got McClellan in his stack along with a whole bunch of others. So I'm suspecting that there's going to be a movement to get, for the Union to try to push on towards Richmond, try to go for an early coup there in terms of the huge strategic will effect. On the other hand, if it means losing a border state, it's probably not worth it. So I've got to at least keep things in hand there. Problem is, I've got people like Fremen, who starts in St. Louis, but Buell, who's not anything great, Pope, who isn't horrible, as the people trying to defend that line. And that's not terribly impressive, but then again, the Union never has good leaders, so early in the war. So you place your units and then do kind of a strategic movement. I don't know if I did wise or unwise things. It feels like I'm erring heavily, but we'll see what turns out. So let me explain a little bit of what's been going on. Both sides are kind of trying to position to grab the neutral states. Now the Union set itself up so that West Virginia will fall to it. The Confederates actually, I believe, already played. Oh no, that's a Union card that wasn't played. I think they have it in their hand, maybe. Yeah, they had the West Virginia card in their hand, which would convert it immediately to a Union state. I'm not sure if that happens even if it's been converted to a Confederate state. It looks like the way it's worded it actually does. However, one of the things the Confederates played was this card, War in the West. I guess this is the effect of everything that goes on in the Victory Games game. Kills the strategy card. So they played that and ended up taking a weaker, a 1-point card from the Union by, it's a random draw. Right now what we've got is the Union played a 3-point card to move the Army of the Potomac, try to cross and make another attempt. They've bulked it up so much and the Confederates have nothing. Nobody's built any other armies. Confederates canceled it with the guerrilla raids. So we're on the Confederate turn, and I'm not sure what they're doing here. I really don't know what we're doing with them. Might end up moving to a fort, because I can't do anything with this until it's an army, really. Alright, we'll see. So here we are at the end of 2 turns. Confederates have grabbed control of another space in Kentucky, grabbed a space in Missouri, but they really haven't been able to extend much. And the Union picked up one in Kentucky, but they got all of West Virginia, which is now a part of the Union, and that increased their strategic will by the 5 points for West Virginia, as well as 2 points for switching. They're now on a positive roll, which could hurt them if things go badly. They were unable to do anything, though, and it feels to me like the Confederates are doing quite well, just because the Union's not getting anywhere. I did move one of the Confederate units into a fort. Intention there, prevent the Anaconda from ever really happening. It's the hope. Alright, on to the fall. Now the fall is interesting because this is the end of the 90-day enlistments. And that means there'll be no regular reinforcements this term. That includes the blockade runner reinforcements. So things are looking kind of, you know, there weren't enough troops this turn, and there certainly won't be in the next. I'm very frightened, though, about that Army of the Potomac from the Confederate point of view. That's a beast with a lot of troops. There's a couple of armies able to be made, both Pope and Buell, but they've lost strength points due to attrition. Johnston lost strength points as well. Of course, the Army of the Potomac lost strength points. That attrition is making it very, very hard to get rolling. Alright, let's see what this turn brings. Well, here we are moving through the fall turn of 61. For the most part, there was another hand depleting card. Confederate Railroad degradation. Took a card away, a better card away from the Confederates. But for the most part, they built armies. Army of Tennessee was built, as was Buell, little Don Carlos Buell. And the Confederates moved into Fort Pulaski, again, strengthening their position. The Union left only one strength point back in Washington, which should be sufficient to handle what Johnston's got, they hope. And chased Beauregard down. Now, he got retreat before battles in every case. Grabbing 3 Virginia territories. They're not really worth anything as long as Richmond and I guess Norfolk is about it, are in Confederate hands. Virginia's not going to surrender without that. And you need 14 territories for Virginia to surrender. Now, the Shenandoah count's double, but that's not really an issue here. Other than that, not a lot's happened. We're on the Confederate turn. Let's see what they can do. They're not too thrilled with the risk over in Virginia, but I don't know what they can do about it, really. Okay, so what little they could do, they played the Chief of Ordnance, which gave them an extra strength point over in Richmond. They took a couple more elsewhere. They can only put 1 per state, though. Yeah. The Union is going to play a 3-point card. They move into Richmond. Beauregard's going to try to stand here. He's got a total of 4 strength points. He's facing 11. That's not quite 3 to 1. But there aren't a lot of options here. Okay. So, commanding general rating. Well, for the Union, it's 1 for attacking from McDowell and 1 for Beauregard defending. The Army, however, gets to get 2 subordinates, and they have 2 more +1s under Rosecrans and Halleck, which they'll use. So they're a +3 to +1. It's not an army to army. It's a garrisoned fort in a land battle, so it's going to be +3 to +3. This is still an advantage to the defender. They both get 6s. Which means what? The defender actually takes 2 losses. Yeah. So the defender's taking 2, the attacker takes 1. That's going to be a victory for for the Union, and I think they're going to take the fort. If they do, on their next turn they must play this. I gotta look up to make sure they do get the fort, but I believe they do. So indeed the fort was destroyed, Richmond's destroyed, the capital's been taken. Huge, huge effect on strategic will. Confederates are down to about 60, the Union's up to 112. That's after the Emancipation Proclamation's been played. However, the Confederates have set themselves up so that they almost have Kentucky on this. I don't think that's a fair trade-off for losing most of Virginia. But still. Oh, shit. Wait a minute, that was one. I forgot. 2. I can keep going. 3. I forgot to keep moving my... Okay, so... Oh, that's an automatic withdrawal. Because the... Oh, that's not an army. No, it's not an automatic withdrawal. Okay, so we got another battle there. I kind of cheated and did this first. But the Union would have pursued. So I'm going to continue with this. So that's 2 strength points now against 10, which is 5 to 1. It's going to give a +4, +5, +6, +7 to +1. So they get 13. That's huge. To 4, they kill 1 Army of the Potomac and lose 3. They're wiped out here. And there's a leader loss check, which I have to make. Alright, I'll come back after this, but I did play out the other things. So he came down 1, 2, 3, 4. He'll be taking Suffolk. It looks like Virginia's in big trouble. Okay, so here we are at the end of 61, going into 1862. Both sides took a 5 strategic will penalty. War weariness for the Union, the effects of the war guilt from the Emancipation Proclamation, yeah, right, for the Confederates. But whatever, there were just definitely strains because of that. I don't know if war guilt is a fair term to explain the effects of it. But it's a nice game effect to have that penalty take effect only after the Emancipation, to make it a worthwhile goal. Well, Buell managed to cut across and keep Kentucky from falling. I forgot about a penalty that the Union took. When they made Buell the army commander, give him an army, I had set things up so Fremont could get an army, but I forgot about him. So the Union had to take an additional 2-point penalty from Fremont. But other than that, things look really, really bleak for the Confederates at this point. I think Virginia is likely to fall, even if they can get Kentucky. And right now, right now they're out of supply. Take another attrition there. So that army of Tennessee under Johnston, it failed to intercept. Doesn't have a cav leader, so that isn't too shocking. I'm clearly making some huge blunders here across the line. This feels like a game between a couple of novices, which is what it is. But I think I'm getting a feel for it and some idea of what's going on in it. I wish I had played it before to give you a better view. But at least maybe if you're new to it, you can learn a little bit from my mistakes and see. I mean, clearly, not concentrating in the north, in the east front for the Confederacy is a dangerous, dangerous move. as we see the Army of the Potomac just rolled down there. There was nothing to stop it. And nothing to offset that, really. Except Kentucky and Missouri haven't fallen yet to the Union. But that's not too impressive. Okay, well, I'm going to load this one up, and then we'll start on 62 probably tomorrow.